There are reports that a hostage deal with Hamas is close. Until there is an official announcement, we are left with unverified reports and anonymous updates. We are keeping a close eye on the developments as we go. We are very helpful and hopeful that Hamas will let our hostages out of their terror tunnels. Hamas held the hostages for 466 days, and we're still counting. Moments ago, the Associated Press reported that Hamas agreed to a deal. An Israeli source said a deal was close. Outgoing and incoming US Presidents Biden and Trump both said a deal was close. President Biden said a deal was on the brink and finally coming to fruition. President Trump said, "We're very close to getting it done." Hamas could have released the hostages at any time. Hamas chose to keep them, like Hamas chose to kidnap them on October 7th. Hamas chose to murder 1,200 people on October 7th. We need to free the hostages from Hamas captivity. We also need to end Hamas, or else they try to make more hostages again next month or next year. Both of these things are true. Hamas cannot be allowed to keep hostages as insurance for it to rule Gaza again and do October 7th again. If Hamas is left in power, there will be more hostages and more death. We hope to hear good news going forward. And tell your leaders to keep pressuring Hamas's hosts in Qatar, so they will keep telling Hamas to finally let them all go now. Iran and its partners are still trying to kill us all. How many ballistic missiles attacks have you survived? For us in Israel, it's been a dozen attacks. That's crazy. Over 300 ballistic missiles were fired by Iran and their proxies. At me, at millions of children and elderly. That's who Iran wants to murder. Last night, Houthi terror pirates in Yemen fired another Iranian ballistic missile at us. Israel's advanced air defenses saved our lives, but have no doubt, spilling our blood is success for Iran and the Houthis. Remember, the Houthis' motto is death to America, death to Israel, and curse upon the Jews. Iran regularly calls for death to America and death to Israel. They mean it. We need to start listening. Now, let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our first question comes from Instagram. Outgoing U.S. Secretary of State Blinken is reportedly presenting a plan to replace Hamas rule in Gaza with the Fatah-run Palestinian Authority. What do you think about this plan?
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, we need to make sure that Hamas can't rule Gaza on the day after. This is something that Israel has put all of the time. One of the missions of the war, after returning back the hostages to their homes, is to make sure that Hamas can't rule Gaza on the day after, because Hamas said it again and again that they're willing and wanting to do October 7th once again. Also, it's really important to note that Israel can't agree to anyone to rule Gaza on the day after Hamas is over that has never yet to announce that they go against Hamas's hostage taking on October 7th and their death of 1,200 Israelis, the massacre that they've created on October 7th. We can't let any terror funders or any terror supporters to rule Gaza on the day after, because otherwise everything will repeat again and again and again. This time, we need to make sure that the day after will be the day that Hamas and every terrorist that wants to harm us Israelis will be over from this earth. So I really hope that the international community would step in also with some people from the Arab world to make sure that Gaza is demilitarized and also de-radicalized on the day after. This is something that we are all hoping for. We want to be able to live in peace. We don't want to have wars again, not in a month, not in a year, not in 20 years. This is time that we will make sure that the future generations will be growing up on something that we can build on a structure again, and not on hatred like Hamas did throughout the years after they took over Gaza in 2006. This is what we need to put the pressure on. Not letting any terrorist rule Gaza the day after. That will be the same image as Hamas.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ed on YouTube. What do you make of the new president of Lebanon? Do you think we're more likely to reach peace with him?
Thank you very much, Ed, for this question. Lebanon is now at a breaking point. Maybe not at a breaking point, more of a turnout point where they need to look, how do they want to see Lebanon's future? Joseph Aoun, the president that was elected last week, is a promise and promised that he will return Lebanon back to the Lebanese, that the whole sovereignty of Lebanon would be only by the Lebanese military and by the Lebanese people. This is something that we're really hoping for. Talking about peace, this is something that I've been talking about in the last, you can say, 20 years since I've starting my public appearances and talks, because this is what the future should look like. This peace agreement that is still a piece of paper can't only stay as a piece of paper of ceasefire. We need a peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon. This is the future. I know that the people in Lebanon also know that. They are my people. I know that the people in Israel know that. They're also my people. That's why it's about time that Lebanon will take the higher road towards its own independence, cutting ties with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and making sure that prosperous and peaceful negotiation between Israel and Lebanon could lead to a better Lebanon and to a better Israel. And that's what I'm really hoping to see in the upcoming few years of this presidency of Aoun.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Instagram. Many people are asking, is there anything that we know about the initial 33 hostages? Do we know who's living or who could potentially be released?
This is, you can say, the question that all of us Israelis are taking our minds on, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of information that has been shared to the public with the condition or the situation of what's going on. There's a lot of things that are still we're not aware of, and I really hope that every one of us, at the end of the day, will look to the benefit of the hostage families. We need to make sure not to spread any rumors, not to spread any names, not to spread any condition that there has not been any confirmation on yet. This is something that we really take deeply on what's going on, because at the end of the day, those families have went through so much in the last year and a half that we need to let things to go through. So I don't know what's the situation of the 33 hostages that are being talked about today, and I'm really looking forward to hear official statements about that matter. And I think all of us should wait patiently to listen to what official statements are saying and not spread anything else in the mix. Please, let's not hurt or harm the hostage families any more that they have been hurting for the last year and a half.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Robin on Instagram. How can we support the new Lebanon?
Thank you very much, Robin, for this question. First of all, we need to support Lebanon by speaking to Lebanese people. We are able to do, and we have done that in the past also, speaking directly. We don't need any negotiators in between us. We just need to speak directly, Israelis and Lebanese. And if you have any Lebanese friends, and if you have any Israelis friends, make them meet and connect and talk. Because Lebanon and Israel have been in a state, you can say, of enemy states since Lebanon and since Israel was established or reestablished as the Jewish state in 1948. And that's something that I know that Lebanon doesn't want any war going with Israel, because all of the wars that Lebanon had with Israel was not because of Lebanon, but because of terror organizations that took over. We need to start building these bridges from scratch. There are some that already have been built throughout the years. Some of them are speaking directly to me. Some of them are speaking directly to other Israelis. But if you are able to connect between Israelis and Lebanese wherever you are in the world, in Australia, in Canada, in the US, in Europe, do that, because we need to start talking with each other about how we see our combined future. And this is something that I think could help us much more, because at the end of the day, peace on paper will never work if there's no actual talks between the people themselves. And this is what we need to put our effort on speaking with each other, helping each other, and also acknowledging each other's pain. And that's how we can continue forward.
Thank you. Our next question comes from YouTube. There are reports of persecutions of Christians under the new Syrian regime. What do you make of this? Do you think that the new government is going to work for peace and democracy?
We have heard a lot about the new government that is being formed in Syria right now. There is a threat on minorities living in Syria by the new regime because some of these new regimes are Islamist jihadis themselves. And this is something that we need to take into considerations when we are talking as the international community, talking to the new administrations. They need to make sure that all minorities in Syria are being protected by not just the international community, but also by the Syrian new government that is being formed right now. We need to continue on speaking out and to speak about the minorities living in Syria. We can't keep quiet about that. We've seen so many persecution of minorities throughout the whole Middle East in the last, you can say, 2 decades that went quietly in the international community. Not any human rights organization spoke about that, not any people that take into their heart to speak about minorities' rights in general in the world. That's something that we need to put our focus on. Really hoping also here in Israel to see this new government that is going to be formed in Syria as somewhat positive towards having negotiations and hopefully having also a peace agreement with Syria. This is what we're all hoping for the Abraham Accords 2.0. We need finally to have prosperous and peaceful area in the Middle East, that Israel could be the center of it, and we already are the center of it. And I hope that it will expand much more. But you need to keep alerted, and you need to keep on publishing their stories and sharing what they're going through.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Esther on Instagram. Do we know why there are still soldiers who are being killed in Gaza after more than a year? How does Hamas still have access to these weapons?
Hamas's MO was always to hide between civilians. At the end of the day, the IDFs, and that's why the IDF entered Gaza to begin with, because they know that they can't make sure that Hamas wouldn't return to power if they just bomb it in the air. But also, one of the main reasons is to make sure that as many or as least as possible civilians will be harmed because of that. That's why the IDF entered Gaza. Otherwise, we could have ended this war in a week, because the IDF is capable of many possibilities. At the end of the day, the IDF chose to go into Gaza to make sure not to harm civilian casualties on the move, while we're making sure that Hamas, that is being holding hostages inside of Gaza territory, among civilian territories, will not harm anyone else anymore. That's why we're still seeing that Hamas is still capable of harming not just IDF soldiers, but we see that they're harming also Gazans that are trying to get aid support or put their hands on food and aid support that are being sent by the international community. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much more condemnation from the international community against Hamas and against their attacking of innocent Gazans that just want to be able to get aid to support them and their family. And that's something that we see that's why we're putting a lot of pressure on the day after, that Hamas will not be able to regain, regroup, and rearm like they were on October 7th. And we need all of the pressure of the international community to make sure that the day after will not be ruled by Hamas, because they're still capable of harming us. They're still hiding among civilians. And that's something that we need to take into considerations.
Thank you, Jonathan. This is our final question, slightly more of a comment. Jonathan says, we can see the love and hope in your eyes when you talk about peace with Lebanon. Can you tell us a little bit more about your dream of peace between Israel and Lebanon?
Oh, yeah, this is what I'm hoping for my whole life. Lebanon is my homeland. Lebanon will forever be my homeland, where I was born and grew up till the age of 9, till I had to flee because of Hezbollah. Because Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that is funded by the Islamic Republic of Iran, where they put their pressure not just against Israel, that is today my home, but also against the Lebanese people. And I'm really looking forward to see the day that Lebanon, and this is my dream, will prosper and be again the Switzerland of the Middle East like it once was. People would go and ski in the morning and go to the beach in the afternoon. That's the stories that I grew up on the beloved Lebanon that used to be the Switzerland of the Middle East. Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. By the way, I don't know if you know that, up to the 70s, before the civil war in Lebanon started because of the PLO and later on was continued by Hezbollah, Lebanon was advanced even more than Israel was at the time, economically and culturally and nightlife that it used to have. This is what I'm hoping to have. Maybe not to overcome Israel, because Israel is today my home and this is where I see my future, but I really want to see them prosper beside each other, next to each other, and with each other. Do you know how many Israelis want to travel and visit Lebanon? Do you know how many Lebanese wants to visit also the holy sites that we have here in Israel? Both Christians and also Muslims that want to visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or Christians that want to visit the churches here in Israel. This is the day and this is the dream that I'm looking for, to have these, you can say, utopic living side by side and helping each other out. This is what we need to do. This is the minorities of the Middle East helping each other and being with each other. And that's all what we have time for today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Israel time and 8 a.m. East Coast time. Thank you for watching.